once you cross 2 days of fasting and you get into the third day, the body's telling the cells, hey, I'm consuming the fat. I'm going fast through the reserves. We're going into a crisis here. And in order to survive, I want you to restructure, to rejuvenate, to fix everything going wrong. It's a cellular rejuvenation process
Wow.
that happens after day 3 of fasting.
Hi, everybody. This is Diane Gilman, formerly known as the Queen of Genes for QVC and HSN, but now the proud host of my podcast, Too Young to Be Old, named after my second book, Too Young to Be Old. And today we have the CEO of Longevity and an absolute expert in regressing and changing the course of disease through diet. Yeah, you heard me right. Not only about chasing health, but actually being able to have a plan that's way beyond just eating right. So let me introduce Dr. Joseph Antoun, Dr. CEO of Longevity. That's what a lot of this podcast is about, taking the years from 50 onward and crafting your own plan to live better. And one thing I found, and I didn't even know it until I went through a detox program, which I didn't even go through fully. When they said give up coffee, I was like, are you crazy? That is not happening. So partial detox, how much better your body feels the older you get as you eat correctly. So give me a little background about how you want to manage to take sick care and make it health care by changing diet.
Well, thank you, Diane. This is going to be, I hope, a wonderful segment. I try to promise on podcasts to change somebody's life. I think we're going to change somebody's life today. Lots
Sounds
of
good.
information, a lot of science, a lot of novelties. So, everyone listening here, stay tuned. We're going to talk about a lot of exciting novelty in science of longevity. I started my career as an MD PhD. I was a doctor, a physician. I wanted to help cure patients. This was my dream since I was 10 years old. And then you get into medicine and you discover that you're just seeing people after they're sick. So
Yeah.
we're practicing sick care. And then you're just putting them on a multi-pill regimens that they're going to have to refill every month for the rest of their lives, right? Today, most patients, we're not talking about like short-term infections, etc. We're talking about 90% of patients that suffer from chronic diseases, Alzheimer's, no treatment. You got to take supplements and pills every day. Diabetes type 2, no true treatment, except now we do have a way to reverse it with nutrition. We're going to talk about that with the fasting mimicking nutrition program. And then cholesterol, triglyceride, all these issues, we were just taught to give a pill that you have to refill every month for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I used to tease my attending. I was like, if this pill works, why there's no expiry date? Why they have to take it every month? And this is how I started, rebelling against the system. And I left and I studied public health and health policy, Harvard and Hopkins. And I wanted to be one of the leaders in pushing a preventative agenda and
Yeah.
trying
Which
to,
I so believe in. I
yes,
don't, I'm almost 80. They told me I had high blood pressure after chemo and also cholesterol. And I refused to take statins. I didn't want blood pressure medicine. I solved it all by diet. I took dairy out of my diet. I took everything rich out of my diet. I took all the bad things that I shouldn't be
yes,
eating. And guess what? It worked and it
yes.
worked perfectly. But
And
that is in Western medicine, that is very rare. That is not the case. And everybody around me who's sort of age appropriate to me is on a zillion different drugs.
yes. And this is the two big aha moments that changed my life and brought me here to L-Nutra, the company I'm leading, is one, realizing that food, right, is the only product, before we start about the ingredients, is the only product we put in our body every day of our lives.
Yeah.
And it turns into who we are. And it's the biggest signal that you send to your genes, to your epigenetics, to read them in a different way. So it's the most impactful thing you can do to your life is to manage your nutrition. We are what we eat, and we eat every day of our lives. So it's the only product, I'm comparing that to drugs, I'm comparing that to exercise, to anything you do. It's the only thing that you do every day in your life, multiple times. So it must be the biggest signal for longevity or for sickness. And so
You
I
know,
knew that I needed to focus on nutrition.
yeah, which is so fascinating. When I went to Mount Sinai in New York for cancer treatment, breast cancer, they talked to you about food, but I realized this wasn't about eating a nutritious diet or a diet in harmony that was going to go hand in hand with chemo or radiation. They just didn't want you eating at salad bars or eating foods that had been packaged for a while. Nobody, and you saw your nutritionist all the time because they were terrified with the lowered resistance you were going to get some kind of stomach infection that was really going to interrupt what needed to get done for your cancer. And nobody ever talked about, and by the way, don't eat super processed foods because they're full of chemicals and they're just going to aggravate your body. Nobody said anything about that. No Doritos, no Cheetos, no queso, canned dip, no nothing. So, I think that Western medicine in general does not give the credit to the actual human body they're working with and say, well, if you just took this category, this and this out of your diet, you're going to lower your blood pressure, you're going to lower your cholesterol, and then we don't have to get you on statins, which have their own side effects. So I would love to know an interpretation of the foods that turn sick care into health care.
Yes. So I just want to close on the second thing that changed my life because they're both tied into responding to your question. The first thing is food is the most important product in our life that we need to take care of if we want to live a healthy, long life and stay healthier longer. The second thing is aging, right? And in Western medicine, we don't study aging. We don't try to reverse the biological age of the body. But aging is the most important mother of all diseases, right?
Aha!
You don't get the first heart attack at age 22. You don't get Alzheimer's at age 25. You don't get the breast cancer in most cases at age 21, and you're not going to get even Alzheimer's, even if you have the ApoE gene, you're not going to get it at age 30. You're going to still get all of them at later stage in life.
Right.
So I put one plus one together: nutrition, biggest impact on the body; aging, the mother of all the diseases that are killing us today. 90% of us will die out of four age-related conditions. Age-related: diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, and cardiovascular disease. So then my passion became, how can we tailor nutrition to reverse the biological age and
Yes.
pull you away
So
from those four
do
killers?
tell. How do we reverse the biological age? I want to know immediately. I'm almost 80. I got to get to work on this now.
So what we did differently, and why they call me the CEO of longevity, is we decided to do this in a credible way. In how pharma and biotech develop drugs, we wanted to develop nutrition for longevity, nutrition as medicine, the same way we do drugs. So we put together 18 universities. We're talking about Stanford, USC, UCLA, Mayo Clinic, Indiana University, University of Miami. We put top 18 global medical centers together, and we
Right.
started researching novel nutrition formulations that can impact the age of the cell.
So tell
And
us. Wow.
and after 41 human trials, we developed and we tested and we spent 36 million just in the first phase of development we developed what we call a fasting mimicking nutrition. It's a 5-day plant-based nutrition that you consume, but your cells do not recognize the food. So your cells are fasting while you are eating food for 5 days.
Is that
The, pr-
good? Or
that's
is
super,
that bad? No, that's
super good.
good. Okay,
That's super good.
super good. Why? Why?
So what happened, and again, we studied this over 20, 30 years now and 41 human trials. What happened is when the body thinks you're fasting, there's two major changes that happen in the body. The first one is when the body thinks you're not eating, the body's going to go to the reserves to use those, right? To spend those to
Yeah,
sustain the body. So the body goes to fat, any excess fat, etc., which 73% of Americans, especially after age 40 and 50, start having what we call the stubborn fat. It's too difficult to get rid of that fat. Well,
that's me.
it seems that the signals of fasting go directly to fat, and it's the most important fat melting, which is the central fat of the body, the visceral fat, the fat around the heart, the fat within the liver, the fat within the viscerals, the organs. This is the most harmful fat because it creates insulin resistance and then it catalyzes diabetes and Alzheimer's and other conditions. So the signals of fasting give you a metabolic reset. You lose fat, your blood pressure improves, your blood insulin, your blood glucose, your blood cholesterol, a lot of improvements that are all metabolic.
I do
Now,
intermittent fasting. Yeah.
so that's the first period, and it happens. We with our food, we give you 5 days of that signal, so much more intense, much higher benefit than skipping breakfast with intermittent fasting. We're
But what kind of
basically,
food? Just name a couple of foods that
uh,
you're
yeah.
recommending
I'll
because
I'll
the
continue.
audience is really going to want to know.
Yeah, I'll continue. The second benefit. So first is the metabolic
Okay.
reset. The second major benefit, and the most important one, is that once you cross 2 days of fasting and you get into the third day, the body's telling the cells, "Hey, I'm consuming the fat. I'm going fast to the reserves. We're going into a crisis here, and in order to survive, I want you to restructure, to rejuvenate, to fix everything going wrong. It's a cellular rejuvenation process
Wow.
that happens after day 3 of fasting. This process is scientifically called autophagy, self-eat, self-rejuvenate. And because fasting impacts every cell of the body, every cell lives on calories. So the cells of the body are engaging in autophagy. And this is, we call it the miracle of biology. It won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016. So this is when we say there's a doctor from inside of our body that we haven't explored. This is the biggest doctor. This is the rejuvenation from within. So the entire goal of us trying to mimic a fast for 5 days is to help you cross day 3, but you're eating, so you're not feeling the extreme hungers, you're not having the headaches, you're not feeling. So we developed a scientific food nutrition, very precise formulation. I'll tell you more about that, and I know you're excited
I
to go
am.
to
I
it.
want to do it immediately.
But it's so important to marry now the two concepts of I'm losing a lot of weight, fat driven, and by the way, it protects muscle. It's the only diet that, because this rejuvenation in the muscle happens as well, and you're fasting with food, not like intermittent fasting, you're just skipping food. Here you're fasting while nourishing the muscle. So you're losing visceral fat, which is very important, especially for women that are postmenopautic. So important to preserve the muscle, so important to rejuvenate the skin, so important to melt the fat within the liver and the heart, etc. You're marrying this with cellular rejuvenation. There's nothing today that we know of in science, in medicine, that you can do that can push the cells in a mass way as fasting for 3 to 5 days to rejuvenate and get a biologically younger score.
I am going to make a very bold statement. I believe in red light therapy. That is a form of LED/laser lighting. It is being used in all the best boutique spas now in Manhattan and Beverly Hills, but it's available to all of us now through FlexBeam. I got what kind of looks like, pardon me, a bullet capsule belt. like for warfare, and it kind of is warfare against achy joints and inflammation from FlexBeam. I use it every night on my arthritic knee. I use it on my left arm, which has lymphedema from having all my cells removed, lymph nodes removed because of breast cancer. It's like magic. Actually, I'm traveling to London with it in a couple of days. I'm going to use it even on the airplane. What does red light do? Red light gives you blood circulation. It gives you warmth. It gets those achy muscles, those arthritic joints moving again. And you know what? FlexBeam is so easy to use and it's rechargeable. And yeah, I know you may say to yourself when you look at it, whoo, yikes, that's a lot of money. But FlexBeam, this particular device, is really meant for you and I. If you're anybody over 50 and you're beginning to see your joints stiffen, you're beginning to get aches and pains, doing exercise is becoming more of a strain than a reward system, you need FlexBeam. If you want to check, go to your nearest spa, the spa that may be using it, that may have forward thinking, because it's still really in the forefront of treatment. And they'll tell you how much a session is going to cost. And I'll bet you 4 sessions would equal what you're going to pay for this FlexBeam red light therapy device, which is portable, uncomplicated, rechargeable, kind of comes with a Velcro strap and an extra one so you can put it on any area of your body. I put it around my knee. I put it lower part of my knee and then lower part of my thigh. So I get the blood circulation going everywhere. Honestly, I don't want to live without it. FlexBeam is a real deal. And you're going to find that with the discount that you can get using our code in the caption, this is going to become a way of keeping yourself younger. I almost call it reverse aging. I can move around again. My knee was arthritic. I'm telling you, red light therapy is truly modern aging. Try it and let me know. And keep in mind, the price is so worth it because this device is going to keep going for the next 5-10 years. This is not something that you use for a couple of months and then it kind of fades away. This is my absolute comfort go-to. FlexBeam is a real deal.
A few months ago, we published our article in Nature. Nature is the #1 science journal of the world. It's showing that if you do 3 cycles of the fasting mimicking diet, it's called, the product in the market is called ProLon. So you buy it actually. It's not something you do at home. You buy it, it's a box, it's a precision nutrition that has 77 ingredients, 100% plant-based, all high premium plant-based ingredients, clean food. But the formulation is studied, and again, we spent $36 million to develop it,
Right.
is it's studied to basically when you eat it, it doesn't spike blood sugar and blood
Uh-huh.
proteins. So it
Uh-huh.
doesn't spike the growth factor that tells the body that you ate, meaning insulin as a response to carbs and insulin-like growth factor as a response to protein. Once they're not spiking, the bloodstream getting all the hormonal signals to the body is not saying there is food. And then when the food gets to the cellular level, we studied the 3 radars at the cells that detect food. They're called the nutrient sensing pathways. And so we go around those. So the cells, the radars of the cells are not triggered enough to tell the cell that there's food. So neither the blood nor the cells are recognizing the food. And therefore, it's a fasting, mimicking nutrition aimed at resetting your metabolism, rejuvenating your cells, giving you 2.5 years of biological age
Whoa.
reversal once you do it, if you do it 3 times per year. So we're saying 15 days out of the year, 3 times, you do ProLon, and the studies are showing a bio-age score reduction of 2.5 years.
Okay, but I'm here, I'm sitting at home. I want to know, what can I do before I get ProLon? Or what can I do with my everyday life? What foods are going to prolong my life? What foods are going to give me the
Yes.
longevity I seek
Yes.
and give me the high performance level
Yes.
I need for this period of my life? So
Yes.
let's go from prolong to the everyday life in
The longevity.
between those three
Yeah.
times a
Yeah.
year.
So the founder of our company, L-Nutra, Professor Walter Longo, is the author of the longevity diet, which is exactly what you ask, is what to eat every
Aha!
day. And we have multiple scientific papers published. Look him up. His name is Walter Longo. If you ask ChatGPT, he's the number one most published author in longevity diet.
Right.
And so fasting mimicking diet 3 times per year, ProLon, in between what to eat. And it's a very long answer because it depends on two things, but I'll try to generalize.
Let's just get it simplified for an audience that is not scientifically based but would
Yes.
like to live a long, productive life.
Yeah, but we are a very scientific and ethical company, so and me personally, so I don't want to do any harm. I want to actually support people, and we got to
Exactly.
support them in the right way. So the answer depends on what's your goal. If your goal is just to live longer, because some people the goal is to build muscle, their goal is to performance. But if the goal is longevity, the second question is the age bracket, because people below age 30 will have a different longevity diet. Between age 40 and 65 is a different longevity diet. And after age 65 is a different longevity
That's
diet.
me. And that's a big part of my audience.
Yeah,
So, should I be going all green? Should I be going vegan, which is very difficult for me? Should I ever have red meat? Should I be a
yes,
pescatarian? Should I be a chicken hound, which I really am? I do a lot of chicken.
yeah.
Where should I be? I'm almost 80 years old, and I do notice when I eat healthy and really take away all mass produced food from my diet, I feel totally different. I feel much more
Yes.
clear headed, much more energetic, more organized. So, what do you say for anybody
So if you're
55
above
or over?
65 and older, 50, if
65
40,
or over.
65 and older, you get first, it's a plant-based diet. So you got to start with most of your sources of calories. And most importantly, the sources of complex carbs. You don't want to have short carbs like sugar. You want to have complex carbs. Should come from legumes, vegetables, and nuts. And nuts are very important. There's a
Yeah.
study. There's a study actually published in the New England Journal of Medicine. That's the number one medical journal of the world. That shows if you eat what we call the high-end nuts, meaning hazelnut, almonds, almonds specifically, 6 times a week, 6 out of 7 days. It actually decreases cardiovascular death from cardiovascular risk. So cardiovascular is the number one
Wow.
killer by 20%.
Wow.
So for those listening to us today, eating those nuts 6 days out of seven is superior in injecting yourself with GLP-1 or semaglutide, the Ozempic and the Wegovys, because they showed 10-12% enhancement in improvement in cardiovascular risk. Almonds alone can get you 20% in reduction in cardiovascular death.
Can I
And
use almond milk or should I be going directly to the nut itself?
almond milk wasn't studied in that it was more
Oh, okay.
almonds. Yeah. And we use almonds as almonds in our food. We keep them as almonds. This is what has been studied. Maybe almond milk. We believe almond milk is probably, and again, it's a long discussion because I cannot generalize. We're very ethical and scientific. And
Yeah,
almonds,
but
it
it's a
depends
short podcast, so I'm
because
just
it
trying to
depends.
get to
It
it.
depends when you source them. Because almonds could also contain acrylamide, and when you roast it, actually, you increase some of the toxicity of some of the ingredients. Yes, so it's a long story, but so sourcing is very important.
Well,
But
we like to
basically,
make it as simple and
yes.
focused as
So
we can.
plant-based, legumes, vegetables, and nuts. Remember the nuts, and of course
Okay,
seeds. So that's the base. Then you add mainly the source of animal protein. So nuts and grains and seeds have a lot of protein as well, but you want to supplement that with fish,
right. Oh,
and
okay.
and you want to do 2 to 3 times a week at least a seafood source and an animal source of protein to take it from seafood. And because you're above age 65, adding a little bit of meat of land-based meats, chicken and or meat or red meat is actually allowable, and but not in abundance. And because after age 65, why I ask about the age, the absorption of protein decrease after age 65, and muscle,
Oh,
yes, and muscle becomes an organ of longevity after age 65, because movement becomes so important. You lose muscle after age 65, your body metabolism slows down, so anything you eat gets turned into fat because you're not burning it. So it's
yeah.
very important. Muscle becomes an organ of longevity at that age. number three
Wow.
number
Good to
three
know.
Number three, most cancers do not start after that age, they start earlier. So even the risk of cancer, because cancer is related to consumption of animal source of protein. So below age 65, I would have to tell you much less or no red meat, but after age 65, we allow meat. We call it the flexitarian. So it's a pescatarian, but you flex it a little bit, you add more meat to it. We allow a little bit more proteins when you're
That's
above age
great.
65.
Now, I was told in my cancer care, this was the one thing they repeated to me endlessly: don't get fat.
Yeah,
Okay. They told me fat holds toxins. Toxins turn into cancer. So, the one biggest job I would have as I came out of treatment, I gained 30 pounds of water weight from all the chemicals, had to lose that. But don't get fat. I heard that again and
yeah,
again.
yeah. And that was breast cancer?
Yeah.
So we have over 8 human trials, randomized clinical trials on breast cancer and other cancer and ovarian. With big focus of ours is nutrition for women's cancer and for
Oh, yeah.
prostate as well. So let's talk about that, because there's a lot of misconception, especially in cancer nutrition, big time, by the way, big time, especially driven by few companies that want to sell you proteins there, right? So once you have cancer, the first thing you got to take care of is the current cancer, not the risk of another cancer. You got to take care of the current cancer. And there's two things you do not want to do, is to take a very high protein diet, which is the opposite of what the dietitians would tell you. Because what is cancer? Cancer is a cell that has lost inhibition. When a cell replicates, it touches other cells, it stops. When a cell loses inhibition, it just keeps growing, 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 becomes cancerous. This is how cancer goes. It's a group of cells that do not stop the replication. So guess what cancer loves the most to grow? Guess what cancer needs the most to grow?
Protein?
Proteins, of
Oh, I
course.
guessed it. Okay.
Right?
Yay.
If you want to grow your muscle, what do? You take proteins, right? And once you have cancer, the organ that will eat the most and wants the most your proteins and your carb is cancer.
Wow.
So for breast cancer, you should definitely, first of all, breast cancer is one of the rare cancers that you gain weight with. So this is where fasting is so important, because you have an excess weight and now you're coming in. Fasting helps you lose the weight and starves cancer. The most important thing you want to do from a nutritional standpoint once you have cancer is to not over nourish the cancer, because then it can resist your chemo. This is the problem. Chemo would work. The problem with chemo is cancers learn how to resist it. And then the doctor has to go to another treatment or put multiple treatment, then you get more side effects, then he has to go down on the treatment dose, then you never get to a cure. But if you starve your cancer, then the cancer cannot resist. What we have studied in multiple mice trials and human trials is that when cancer is not well fed, it cannot resist as much as when it's in thriving the chemo.
Okay. So, not to get too specifically into breast cancer, but I was there. Um, most women probably fast during treatment because chemo is so upsetting to their
Yes.
stomachs. But for me, they were giving me tons of steroids. I had a huge appetite. and was lucky enough never to get sick from chemo, even though they said it was very strong. But if you do have breast cancer and you are having a very kind of violent effect mechanism from chemo, then that must be a good thing in the long run for your body because you're not eating.
Yeah, so before the chemotherapy, 3 to 4 days, this is what we have studied, you should fast. We do it with the fasting mimicking nutrition because we're mimicking a fast, but we're giving food. The 3 days will tell all the cells of the body will hibernate because there's no calories. Cancer is so weakened. So when chemo comes in, it doesn't give you as many side effects because the normal cells are not replicating. Chemo kills the cells in replication. This is why you lose hair because hair replicates fast. You lose white blood cells because they replicate fast. So when you fast the body for 3 to 5 days before the chemo, now you're taking the side effects, many of the side effects decrease because the normal cells of the body, they are fasting, they don't replicate when they're fasting. So you're protecting them.
Oh my God.
And and then you're sensitizing cancer to the chemotherapy because cancer is so much weakened. Cancer doesn't know how to stop replicating. So it's like somebody is running the marathon, cannot stop, and now is underfed, is going to collapse.
Wow.
And then you bring chemo on top of it, which is where you see the benefits mainly on. And then after that, so fasting pre-chemo, then after the chemo, after you're done with the cycles, you want to eat plant-based. Again, you don't want to spike proteins, carbs. You don't want to spike insulin and growth factors because cancer loves your growth factor. It's going to grow faster. Think about it. Once you have cancer, it's the fastest growing organ. So you want to temper down your body rather than feeding the body. And this is where doctors and dietitians do big mistake. They give you this liquid proteins, high levels of proteins. Eat those, and you're nourishing cancer first and foremost. So you got
You
to go on a.
know,
Mhm.
the interesting thing was for me, and I had an estrogen based cancer, but everything was about not eating vegetables because if you had a salad bar or if whatever it was, you're getting a lot of bacteria. So they actually were lecturing you not to eat vegetables. Yeah, I got to
'Cause
tell you,
they were they
it
were
is so confusing.
they were worried more about your low blood white blood cells, right? So this is why I talk about the
Yeah,
vicious
very.
circle. If you don't manage nutrition before chemo, then chemo gives you a lot of side effects. If you have a lot of side effects, now you're prone to infection and you take a lower dose of chemo and you never get to cure. So you
Ah,
got to intervene early. You fast before the chemo. After the chemo, you continue with intermittent fasting. JAMA Oncology is the Journal of American Medical Association Oncology. It's one of the top oncology journal. Published a trial on 9,000 women. This is a very huge trial. And they looked at just those who do 13 hours of fast, meaning overnight plus few hours. And they found out, or 14 or 15, etc. They found out a high statistical significant decrease in rate of recurrence of cancer because you're undernourishing the cancer. And it was per hour increase. So
wow.
the 14 hours did better, the 15 hours did better. It's a huge trial. It was published in 2016, observational trial, published in 2016. No doctor in oncology talks about it. No dietitian
No,
talks about it.
none,
And
none.
and it's the power of food. And so imagine just that small daily thing, because
Oh,
again,
that's
it's true. Yeah.
incredible. One reason why I went to intermittent fasting was because I got arthritis in my knees after chemo. And so I'm moving around less because it's painful. And therefore, I thought, okay, then I don't need the number of calories I would get from being 40 years old and eating 3 meals a day. So I think my intermittent fasting actually sounds like it's
Yes.
pretty good for me. Oh, I'm so
Of course,
happy.
if you have remaining cancer cells, you don't want to nourish them all the time. They'll grow fast, right? It makes perfect sense. It's just the
No, it
I don't want
explains it to you though.
to.
So I have to ask you, as this is so fascinating. I need to ask you as our final question because we've got to wrap up. How can we read about your theories and the chance to perhaps get into your program, because the rate of cancer is going up. It's just shooting straight up like a rocket ship. And they now say minimum of 50% of Americans in their lifetime are going to experience cancer. What your information is so valuable. How can we find you? How can we see about getting into your program?
The first thing, three recommendations. First thing, buy the Longevity Diet book. It's a
Okay.
life-changing book. Per disease, it tells you what to eat if you have cancer, if you have
Oh,
diabetes, if you have,
fantastic.
yeah. And
Okay.
this is published by the Longevity Institute of US at USC. The founder, Walter Longo, he's
Okay.
timed 50 top 50 most influential people in health. Number two, read the science. You can always Google fasting, mimicking diet, and cancer. But if you want to read the article specifically, you go to our website, l-nutrahealth.com. We are a company about longevity through nutrition, so we called it L-Nutra, Nutra.com, and look for scientific articles. You can read the
Okay.
articles. If you want to do ProLon for longevity, the ProLon Life website, prolonlife.com, has all the scientific articles related to ProLon. So there's a section called, about the product, and you can read all the scientific articles. You call them theories. We don't have theories. We're the first true biotech of nutrition, 41 clinical trials, randomized. We have more studies on the fasting mimicking diet than a drug would have, because we have 41 clinical trials on the fasting mimicking diet. I don't think there's anything more studied today as a
But
molecule
I just want
as
to
that.
say, in conclusion, from somebody who's about as unscientific as you can get, I was in fashion my whole life. Um, but now I'm all about pro aging and pro health.
Yes.
Um, this is a revelation to me and probably a big part of my audience. And nobody wants to give up years of their life, but
Yes.
nobody knows how deleterious their diet can be. And when I talk to people, I had a friend, 85 years old, going through a lot of medical stuff, as you would at that age. And I said, by the way, do you support yourself with diet? She looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, what do you eat during a day? Cheetos, Doritos, canned salsa, and I'm thinking, oh my God. So, you know what? We are a cancer nation
Yes.
that is completely undeveloped in knowledge about you. I think most people I speak to think it's inevitable, but it actually is not. And I am so thrilled to hear that my intermittent fasting may actually be helping me not get
Yes.
cancer back again.
So we,
Doctor, I think we need to have you on again in
yes.
2025. We know we definitely do, because
And
one of
I,
the biggest fears for women is breast
yes.
cancer, and
So
we all feel like we are just sitting ducks
so
waiting for some horrible disease to happen when in fact we can be proactive. So I want to
yes.
thank you. This is just too fascinating
It's
for just one
fascinating.
show.
It was fascinating, since we're talking about fasting.
Fascinating. I love that.
And
And
Diane, for
especially right now when
two things for 2025, end of January, we are releasing the fasting and longevity documentary, so people can Google and find that.
oh,
And
great.
end of February, our founder is releasing his new book, The Fasting Cancer. It's called Fasting Cancer. It's a full book. End of February, the big publisher. So his first book sold millions of dollars, The Longevity Diet. Please, everyone listening here today, if anything, jump on Amazon, whatever, $10, $12, The
Yeah.
Longevity Diet. Send it
We'll
as a
list
gift.
it.
It's the
We'll
best
list it
gift.
all.
It's the best
Okay.
gift also to give to friends and family.
No kidding. Because,
Yes,
there is so little information when you become a cancer patient, and 50%, hands down, will during their lifetime. It doesn't need to be a death sentence, but you're so in the middle of a battle that you don't really get, unless you're at a super sophisticated hospital, which I was at and still didn't get, a plan for the future, a plan when you're not on chemo anymore, a way of bolstering your health and the wall that stands between you and cancer coming back. This is all profound. So we will see you, Doctor, in 2025. And thank you so much. This was incredible. So
Appreciate you.
informative.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Bye bye.
CEO of Longevity, Dr. Joseph Antoun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Too Young to Be Old podcast. The episode may be over, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at The Diane Gilman, or visit our website, thedianegilman.com. If you like the show, leave us a rating or a review and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. And until then, don't forget, age is just a number. Together, we'll prove that we are all too young to be old.